Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today's video is one that I've been wanting to do for a while. I have been a little nervous about it because it's a little bit negative, but also I just really, one, want to vent about things that bother me in books, and two, want to give you a better idea of the things that bother me in books and why I may be rating a book lower so that that can help you decide if you want to pick up one of my recommendations. You know what I mean? So, I am wearing my villain t-shirt. This is from Hello Lovely Box. I'm not sure if they still have these, but I am a rep for them still. My discount code is Crystal's Bookish Life 15 if you ever want to pick something up. I really love their bookish clothes. They're my favorite. So, alright, let's go ahead and get started. So today's video is all about the things that I hate in books. So I have a list that I've just been adding to in my phone over time as I read a book and I find something that bothers me, and it bothers me enough that I have recognized that this is a thing that bothers me in every book that I read when this is in it. So we're gonna go over these in no particular order, and yeah, I'm gonna let you know the things that I hate. So okay, if you've watched any of my recent videos, vlogs, or wrap-ups, you know what I'm about to say. Probably my number one pet peeve, something that almost sends me into a rage and makes me want to DNF a book or rate it really lowly, is when that book has an endless amount of trauma added to that book. I call it kitchen sink level of trauma, when they have literally thought of every terrible situation that could have ever happened to their character at some point in their life all into one book. I feel like one of the reasons this bothers me is because I feel like it's really irresponsible to just throw trauma in there, because there's really no way that you're going to address how that character has dealt with it or how they're living their life because of this trauma that has impacted them so severely when you're adding so much, literally like 10s, 20, you know, like all of this types of trauma, that feels unrealistic to me in the way that the character is developed. Not that that can't happen in real life. I think we have heard at least some anecdotal historical accounts of people who have had so much trauma in their lives. But the thing that really upsets me about this is that it's almost impossible for an author who chooses to do that to create a character that is realistic in a way that is believable for me. Because how are you going to fit how that character is living and adapting and trying to overcome that trauma in a 300, 400 page book? It just doesn't seem very likely. I also find it just to really pull me out of the story because, like I said, like it just feels very unrealistic. It's not usually handled with any type of subtlety, and usually when an author does this, it's because they want to elicit emotion from the reader. And they probably will, because you're hitting them with these hard, heavy topics almost out of nowhere, one after the other after the other. Of course you're going to get an emotional response from some readers, but that's it. It's there almost for like shock value, and it doesn't even have to be in a dark romance. It can be in just a contemporary romance. It can be in any type of romance, but I do feel like it is most often used in, I have seen it most often in indie romance and specifically contemporary that are trying to be hard-hitting and emotional, and in dark romance, and I just personally find it very off-putting, and if that happens in a book, I will immediately rate it lower. Like, that is something that I just absolutely have almost zero tolerance for. I hate it. I just don't like that style of writing. It's not emotional. It is lazy writing. It's just a way to create emotion without being a skillful writer, and that turns me off of that author forever, pretty much, because it feels manipulative to the readers. It feels like underdeveloped skills, and I don't have time to invest in writing like that because I know it's just going to really piss me off. So that's probably one of my number one pet peeves. Okay, now another thing, this is sort of changing topics, another thing that really bothers me is when we get the hero's point of view. And this happened in a book I read recently. I'm not going to be naming names of books in here, sorry, but this happened in a book I recently read where we initially had the heroine's point of view, and she's noticing all these different things about the hero and how attractive that she finds him, but it's usually never focused purely on how he looks. And I like that. I like that she is finding things about him that appeal to her and that are attractive, that are not just like a six-pack or, you know, dark, scorching eyes. So I liked that in this book. And then we got the hero's point of view. First time we're reading from his point of view, and immediately he's talking about how hot she is, how much he wants to bang her, how much he wants to get her in his bed, talking about her legs, talking about her boobs, talking about everything that would be a stereotypical thing for a man to think about an attractive woman. And I hate that so badly because I feel like it is a stereotype, and it just turns me off because I feel like, especially when it's juxtaposed with the heroine who has seen other things to be attractive about the man other than his appearance, and then we get the hero's point of view and all he's thinking is, wow, look at the rack on her, I can't wait to get her in my bed. And I'm just like, I've read it, I've seen it, it's in every single stereotype about men, and I hate it because it feels like a disservice to men, for one thing, and it feels just so stereotypical, cardboard cutout, so expected that I get very, very bored, and I just don't like it. I want my heroes to find my heroine attractive, of course I do, but I want it to be more than just her physical appearance. I want to see that hero noticing things about her that he finds attractive that isn't just her TNA. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That really bugs me. I just hate it. It feels, you know, like we often talk about how offensive or how irritating it is when we read a book written by a man and he talks about the woman who's like boobed, bustily or whatever, you know, and we give that a hard time. And I feel like this is exactly that situation flipped. A woman writing a man, and it is so clear that this is not a realistically drawn out man. This is a stereotype, and I just don't like it at all. Okay, so now these next ones, I'm gonna lump them all together, but the basic gist of this thing that I don't like is when, okay, either through like an inner monologue of the character that we're in, usually the heroine, I'm going to pick on the heroine in this instance. So this one bothers me because it's when the heroine is noticing the physical appearance of maybe the hero, or when the hero is noticing the physical appearance of the heroine, or you know, they're just noticing physical appearance of their love interest, or even like a friend of the heroine, you know, and it's all basically about, they find something attractive about this person's appearance, and it's basically saying stuff like, well, but it's not like other girls or other boys, you know, so it gives me big, like, not like other girls vibes or pick me vibes, and I'm gonna give you a few examples. So one of them is, this comes up often, I feel like in any romance, contemporary usually, I've never heard this in a historical. He had muscles, but not the kind you get from a gym. You know, like that type of thing where it's like the way he is built, his muscles are superior to this other physical appearance. Like, I find that annoying. I don't like it. I don't love the idea of putting someone's appearance above another person's appearance just because you feel like this one is superior, you know? I mean, it's body shaming essentially, and I just don't like it. I find it very off-putting. Another one is she had small, beautiful, natural breasts. Like, I read a book recently, not recently, within the last few years, and this was mentioned so many times, and I was just like, we get it. We get it, she doesn't have fake boobs. Like, we get it, she's got really small breasts, and the hero really likes that, and I just like, ugh, it just bugs me so bad. Or another one is when they're talking about she was so beautiful and she didn't need to wear makeup like other girls, or she didn't have makeup, like anything that is basically like, look at how beautiful this natural appearance is and how much better it is than this other type of appearance. And I just feel like, do we really need to have that in our romance novels that are supposed to be all about acceptance and love and letting people have the autonomy over their body to choose how they want to look and how they want their body, their face, their hair, everything to look? I mean, it just drives me crazy when it's overemphasized that this particular appearance is so much better than this other particular appearance. Like, I just don't like that. I don't like it in any way. Those are some that specifically stick out to me because I'm just like, can we just stop talking about how much the hero likes her because she doesn't wear makeup like other girls? Like, it just drives me crazy. So that one is a huge pet peeve of mine. Okay, so here's another one that I feel like I find this most often in indie dark romance or in indie contemporary hard-hitting romance. And it is what I like to call emotional instability in the characters, but emotional instability that is not intended to come off as instability. And what I mean basically is when our character has something happen to them that is supposed to be emotional, and instead of getting to see that emotion develop and you know, be expressed in a way that feels a little bit more natural, that has some subtlety and nuance, instead you're basically like whiplashed from basically like having extreme lust or physical desire for someone to then feeling this extreme intense love, or going from like tenderness to anger and hurt. Like, you know, like I'm generalizing things here, but this bothers me so much. So in a way it feels very similar to the kitchen sink level of trauma, in that this is a technique or a tactic. I don't even want to say technique because I don't feel like this is good writing. This is a tactic that the author is using to try and elicit a very strong emotional response from the reader, but there's no subtlety, there's no nuance, there's no growth and development of that emotion, there's no buildup of that emotion. So in a way, this feels a lot like Insta-banging to me, because even though it's in an emotional basis, and I feel like this is why Insta-banging doesn't work for me, Insta-lust doesn't work for me, is because I want to see the buildup of this emotion. I don't want to just get hit with it. I need the foreplay, okay? Like, I don't really love anything that is heavy-handed or that is just thrown in there to get an emotional response, because I feel like it does reflect on the author overall as a lazy, slow, underdeveloped writing talent. So this bothers me a whole heckin' lot, and it wasn't until this year where I felt like I was able to pinpoint exactly what it was and why it bothered me so much, and now I call it emotional instability in the characters. So I really, really hate this. Again, like, a lot of these things are going to be individual to each reader and what they perceive as realistic and what they're able to, like, look past, and everything on this video are things that to me are like deal breakers, things I can't look past, things that I notice that jump out at me from the book right away, and I can't enjoy the rest of it when this is so glaringly obvious to me. Okay, so next one. Okay, so this one is kind of specifically with like fantasy or paranormal, and it's info dumping. I think this is a very common one to not enjoy. Info dumping when the world is being built, when you're in maybe like the first book or in a new part of the world and the author is just dumping everything on you. But I'm going to take it a little bit more specific and say I very much really don't like this when the world building is told through like the character's inner monologue where they're thinking and reflecting, and you can tell that it's done in a way so that the reader knows what's happening, because the character wouldn't really be thinking about, on this day 25 years ago this happened, and I'm just like, you wouldn't really think like that, character, you know? And so that's one reason why it really bothers me. It also, again, just feels like lazy writing. It feels lazy. I would much prefer, as most fantasy readers do, I'm sure, to learn about the world as we are having a story taking place. And even I would say, for me personally, when world building is done through exposition, when the characters are talking, when they're having a conversation, when they're learning from one another, I very much prefer that to inner monologue type of world building, info dumping. Like, I would rather have the characters have a conversation and learn about the world that way than have it just be from one character. I'm thinking of a very specific book that is extremely popular, and this happened so much in that book. It's from Blood and Ash, in case you already know. I know I just said I was going to drop titles, but this book bothers me so much, and I just have to say that's why. So when we're in that character's point of view, and the author is trying to get you into this world, and everything is shown you in this inner monologue from this character as if it was their first day there, when you know that it's not, and it just annoys me. Info dumping as a whole in fantasy bothers me, but specifically when it's from the character's inner monologue and it's just paragraphs and paragraphs with no dialogue, no action happening. It's just basically telling you a remembered history of this world, and I'm just like, so freaking bored. Lazy writing. Really don't like it. Like, show it to me. Don't just dump it all on me. Let me see the world. Give me a reason to want to go into this world. Show me. You know? Okay, here's another one. This is specifically with, again, like fantasy, or historicals. Like I would say especially historicals, and that is when we have like modern day mannerisms or modern day expressions or speech that are shoved into either a fantasy setting that is supposed to be like a high fantasy that doesn't have like the technology things that we would have today. Again, I'm thinking of From Blood and Ash, or a historical romance where they don't have the mannerisms that we have today or the phrases that we have today. Like I remember reading one a few months ago, I can't remember exactly which book it was, but it said something that was such a common phrase today about the heroine's body, something almost in the way of like a really banging body or something like that. And I'm like, no, like, no, they would not say that. And I'm not saying that historicals have to be 100% historically accurate. Like, I want there to be fantasy, but I just cannot abide when they take modern day slang and they try to fit it in. And it just like, no, I don't like that. I really don't like that. That's something that really bugs me. And yeah, I absolutely hate it. I hate it so bad. Okay, so I already mentioned this, but I'm going to throw it out here again. For me personally, Insta banging, Insta lust, Insta sex almost never works. I just could not care less about two people doing it, man. I really couldn't, unless I have some reason to be invested in this physical attraction panning out on the page. If you just show me these two people, even if they have a ton of chemistry and they right off the bat start doing it, I don't care. I literally don't care. I'm bored to tears. I will DNF the book and probably never read from that author again. Again, my personal preference. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but for me, that is never going to appeal to me. I just find it very boring and uninteresting and like couldn't care less. So there we go. And as an offshoot of this, something else that bothers me with this that is, so we have Insta banging, Insta lust, and then Insta love. Insta love can be difficult for me, really, unless I feel, and this is a very nebulous thing that is difficult to like for me to say this is exactly why this Insta love worked for me, but it has to feel to me as if these two are like soulmates, as if they are lost souls who finally meet, and you can just feel in that moment when they meet that yes, this is their person, you know what I mean? For me, a book that did that really well is Devil in Disguise by Lisa Kleypas. I'm dropping titles again, I'm sorry, I just can't help it. But I do feel like that book is Insta love, but it had that feeling to me, and I think that is largely because Lisa Kleypas' writing just resonates with me so perfectly almost every time. And when that couple met, it felt like I was completely believing that these were two lost souls who finally met, and I just loved it so much. So that is an instance where it does work for me, but again, it's a very nebulous type of thing where I can't exactly pinpoint what it is, other than it's usually an author that I have read and trusted and know that I enjoy their writing. And, you know, Lisa Kleypas, there you go. But something when Insta love doesn't work for me is when we have a lot of buildup of tension, sexual tension specifically, so much attraction. These two are just like combustible. And when they finally get together and have sex for the first time, usually it's the hero. Right as soon as they have sex, the hero's like, I'm in love with her. I am in love with her. I love her. I just do. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You loved the sex, right? Emotions are so high after physical intimacy that I don't love seeing that happen when they have sex and then the hero declares love and that's it. Because like, I don't love that. I just don't love it. I don't believe it, you know? I just don't believe it at all. I mean, there are obviously powerful emotions that rise up in intimacy, but if you are trying to get me to believe that this man who completely did not believe he could ever have emotional feelings for this woman, then the minute they have sex, he's like, yeah, you know what, never mind, I actually do love her. I do not believe it. Not even a little bit. No. And that is honestly one of the most disappointing things for me, especially if the chemistry and the attraction is built up really well, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be fantastic. And then he's like, I love you, you know, in that post-coital moment. And I'm just like, no, you don't. You don't. Don't. Okay, and this is another one that I'm just going to kind of generalize, and I have mentioned this quite a lot earlier, but that is one-note characters. So characters that rely very heavily on stereotypes, like a very typical alpha man who is really just controlling, dominant, protective, and nothing else. Like, we don't get to see any vulnerability to him. We don't get to see any other sides to him. I love me a protective, dominant man. I absolutely do. I love that protective hero. But I want to see a little something else to him. I don't want him to just be alpha all the time. You know, I want him to have complexity. I want him to have a little bit of nuance. I want to see some other facets to him. You know what I mean? And, yeah. I love that. So one-note characters, I picked on the man because I feel like it's typically done there, but it goes for any character in a book. If they rely too close to a stereotype and they just have one note to their personality, no, I don't care. I don't care about you, and I'm supposed to, and I don't. Okay, now this is one that I've also just noticed this year that bothers me a whole lot. And I think this is very specific to romance novels where a lot of the time they don't necessarily require a really tight plot to carry the story along, because a lot of times it's just the relationship that is the plot. So when I'm reading a romance and it introduces a plot point, whether it's mysterious, whether it's something adventurous, any type of plot point that is not revolving around the relationship, once that gets introduced and it feels like intriguing to me, I want to know how that's going to pan out and what's going to happen with that plot that they decided to drop in there, because the author had to have put it in there for a reason. So when that plot point is introduced and then it just dangles and nothing happens with it, I get so upset, you guys. I hate that so bad. Like, if you are not going to do anything with this very intriguing plot, do not introduce it. I know you're doing this to get me interested, to get me invested, but like, don't leave me hanging. Make sure I get satisfied, okay? Okay, I have two more, all right? This video is hopefully not going to be too long. So the second to last one is, and this is, again, is a tricky one that I feel like is hard for me to exactly tell you when this is going to happen in every book, but it does happen from time to time, and sometimes it can happen a lot in historicals, and that is when the tension that has been built up between these characters in this romance dissolves early on in the book, whether that's because they have sex for the first time, they get married in an arranged marriage and have sex, or that's usually what it is because they have sex for the first time. And then all of that beautiful, delightful sexual tension is gone, and it's not replaced with anything else. It's not replaced with any other aspect of the relationship that makes you wonder, like, how is this going to work out? There has to be some continuing level of tension that after they have sex, I'm still invested in this couple, and I'm not just like, well, okay, now what for the next 200 pages? You know what I mean? Like, I really want to, like, I don't need to have a ton of suffering in my characters, and I also don't love it when they get together on, like, 2 pages before the end, but I want to have a reason to continue reading that is me kind of wondering, how is this couple going to work out? And if they have sex too early for me, and then that tension is gone, the mystery of the relationship is gone, then there has to be something else the author has put in there to keep me engaged and wanting to continue reading. Sometimes that can be an outside plot point that has nothing to do with the couple, it's just a plot that these two are involved in. I feel like that's something that Kresley Cole does a lot of times in her books, and that works for me because she's such a master of tension in all aspects, whether it's plotting or relationships or sexual tension. But when that tension is relieved through sex, usually, I need it to be either replaced with something else or not relieved too early. Like, I want the steam to build up before it explodes. And I don't want it to explode too early, because nobody likes that, right? Nobody likes premature exploding. Y'all, I'm gonna have a good time going back and editing this video. Okay, so the last one. These are some words in romance novels that I wish would never show up again. These are my own personal words. I hate to see it. I hate to see it. And every time I see it, I'm like, no, please. Okay, and these are just 4. There are probably more, but these are 4 that have come up quite often that I feel like, can we stop saying this, please? And they are cavern, channel. This is a big one. Womb. I want womb. No. Get it out. No. Does this author know what a womb is? Because it's not really involved in that. I mean, not until later. Like, I hate that word so bad in my love scenes. Like, no, get it out. And the last one is tool. No. Please, no. I kind of like, tee. I hate it so bad. Okay, those are the 4 words that I'm like, please get them out. I don't want to read, I don't want to hear them. No. All right. Thank you so much, my friends, for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a little chaotic and a little bit all over the place, and I hope you still want to be my friend, even if some of your favorite books had these elements in them. And I will say that probably some of my favorite books have these elements in them too. There was just something else in that book that was so compelling, I was able to look past it. So anyway, please let me know if you agree with any of these or what your pet peeve is, things that you hate down below. Let's have a good time and carry on this conversation. And I will see y'all in my next video. Thank you so much for watching.